What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Tuesday Track Talk podcast, episode 24 for William Byron, featuring your Three Stones pit crew. I'm your gas man, Cam.
I'm your Jack man, Kellen.
And I'm your tire changer, Cam.
And we've got another great episode on the docket today. Going to cover a lot of things NASCAR, but we'll touch on a few different series as we always do. We'll recap the Pro Late model in the South Alabama 200. And then we'll even touch on a little, I don't know if you want to call it drama in the wing sprint world and what's going on there. And then as we typically do, we're going to get into a little bit of a deeper dive on the NASCAR series here. No shortage of storylines from this past weekend at Vegas. And we're going to dive into a little bit of the truck series for a second time this year. And then also jump into the Cup series. Kind of a wild weekend. A lot of storylines coming out of that race. So as we get into this, what's going on, boys?
Boy, it cooled off. It
yeah.
was really nice, but it was windy. Then it rained today, and then it just cooled off real quick.
I didn't enjoy any of the warm weather that we had because I was sitting here on Saturday watching the Alabama 200, but I sent you guys a snap on this, was actually watching a little bit of Supercross too. I realized that they were on, and I'm like, well, what the hell? I hadn't watched that in a while, so I dabbled in onto that. They were racing down at Daytona, in the infield of the Daytona, I guess what do you want to call it, dog leg. I don't know if they got any rain down there, but holy hell, were the ruts deep in those.
I did see that. Did I see the fans storm the track before the race was over?
After,
After?
yep. It was like the first half of the field came across, and then I think everybody came on after that. Or something along those lines, but
Hey, racing's racing at this point.
yeah. No, but like those ruts, I mean, Christ, the guys were going through and it was damn near up to their ass on the bike. I mean, them suckers were deep.
Wow.
So no, I was cool to just tune in onto that. Like I said, I hadn't watched in a while. They got Ricky Carmichael up in the booth calling the race too, so he's always good insight to have on those. And kind of maybe a familiar name to those of the NASCAR scene. Deegan, Hayden Deegan was racing in the 250 class. Finished fourth, so he was coming off a win last weekend, and he's going for the championship this year. So
Interesting.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't have covering Supercross on my bingo card tonight.
you're welcome for that. You're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Anybody that's interested to watch, though, you can find it on Peacock.
Okay, that's why I didn't.
Yeah, that'd be why I missed that.
Yes. So that's what, if you're anybody's interested in watching. So
limited
I had to throw that in there.
Limited streaming services in lacrosse. So
Yeah, fair enough. And then since I've been kind of known to be the weird guy when it comes to watching other racing.
yeah. But no, I did see one picture of those ruts, and one guy was standing in it, and it was like above his knees. So
Yeah.
whatever the issue was, whatever.
But that's the elements that they deal with. And, it's just like, the late model guys, the wing sprint guys, it's just the track gets worked a certain way on a certain day, and you race with what you dealt with.
It's true.
Yeah. So good to, I guess, dabble in another series we've never dabbled in, but if we ain't got anything else, let's get into some of the main topics. So first on the docket, a little bit of a race recap here. We had Pro Late models, the Alabama 200, and sure Kellen's just giddy to talk about Casey Roderick dominating. So I'll just kick it to you guys again. What were your initial thoughts on the old Alabama 200 down there? Good field of cars. Good race preview we put out last week. So what were your initial thoughts there with the Alabama 200?
I mean, like you were saying, Casey Roderick just dominated. And like you were saying, I'm sure Kellen's all kinds of giddy for joy with with him getting back onto the racing scene, whether it is in a super late or a pro late, just having him back racing is good for racing. So
Yeah, we were kind of even talking. I mean, you look at that entry list, and you had a couple guys that had issues that you could probably say were going to be your favorites in Augie Girl and Dawson Sutton. So, um, again, a little attrition for guys that, at least Augie Grill, who has won that race literally a handful of times, um, having issues with that. So
did you
you
guys
take
see
out,
what his issues were? I know you were mentioning that the streaming services are limited, but did you see what his issue was?
no.
His window net came down during the race.
Okay, so I saw Blaney, I saw meme. It was Blaney's, when he took his window
Yeah.
net with the All-Star race, whatever it was, Augie Grill or something or other, and there's a picture of the window net literally like halfway down the
Yep.
car.
So that's
Interesting.
what happened. His window net came while he was in the lead. His window net came down.
Aye, that's a
So,
tough way to lose the lead.
mm-hmm.
It's one thing if
So
you lose a motor or have issues like that, but
yeah.
it's tough.
And then Dawson Sutton, he was running P2. It was going to be a stretch for him to catch Roderick, but he ended up cutting a tire that took him out of contention of that race then too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, let's be honest about this. Roderick started last year, guns a blazing, with that deal to run the Stars Tour last year, and he
yep.
showed that he can wheel a race car. And the start of this season just proves again that he's somebody that's going to be a force to reckon with, and he keeps running well like this. Could find himself with a very successful summer.
In anything that he hops into.
Correct.
So and
And
he's come out and said that he's running a full year this year too.
he's filed an entry for the Stars race coming up here in a couple weeks. So um uh we've said it a couple episodes, but having Roderick in a car makes super late model racing, or even in this scenario, pro late model racing, just that much better.
Yep. And
You
again,
know,
to kind of go ahead.
I kind of think, on top of that, like, so you think about it, he pretty much had that thing wrapped up. I mean, just dominated. But at the end of the day, having him in a car makes the field better. When you
Yep.
know somebody like that's showing up, you're going to have to bring your A game every time you buckle in.
And it's no bash on Augie Grill or Dawson Sutton, but it's kind of like Bush going down and running Xfinity or the Truck Series. It's you all right. The best of the best is here. What do I got compared to him?
Yep. And even for races for those guys that when Roderick's not around, if you're running against him more often, you're getting data on what you can do with your car to be better other places that he might be running other races somewhere else that you're just going to have to be that much better.
Yep.
And you're going to learn stuff about your car or do something you maybe don't usually do. And all of a sudden, you find a couple tens.
Yeah. And like you were
So,
saying, pure dominance. He took the lead for the final time on lap 91 of 200. So he led the last 109 laps,
yeah.
and then 7 cars finished on lead lap. Given there was no cautions to break that up either, or there weren't a lot of cautions, so it was a very clean race for that to happen. But yeah, it just came in and as
Which,
classic cast kicking basically.
and to your point, that's also in hats off to these guys because some of the top series in NASCAR have struggled with that to be able to run a race like that and just run and
Yeah.
run clean where you're not tearing stuff up where the World Series you got the Pro Late model sail off into one and you wreck 18 cars or whatever
Yeah.
it was wreck that. For these guys, it's especially being so early in the season, run a long race. Now you know what we're going to do on these tires. You got some data to run a longer race. So again, there's some issues there, but at the end of the day, to have a race run like that so clean is also very good to see.
And especially with the Money in the Bank series, um, or no, sorry, the Show Me the Money series.
Yep,
Um, you still got a number of races left on the year. Roderick may not show up for those, so like you said, building a good notebook and kind of seeing who the guys are for that year.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, healthy payday for Roderick again.
Yeah,
Cool 10K.
Yep,
That'll keep the wheels turning on a race car, that's for sure.
exactly. And
Is
again,
where
especially as he ramps up for a Stars Tour series.
and he is this deal he's got with Campy. You look at
It's a
the
good
cars in
camp.
that cars in that stable. They run well no matter where they are. If they can stay out of
Yep.
trouble, they're going to be fast no matter what. So
Speaking of, Donnie Wilson had a couple cars there this weekend. They struggled a little bit.
they did.
They
Mhm.
struggled a little bit, but again, I don't think they would add a whole lot for Roddick when it comes down to it. He was just class of the field.
Amen.
Anytime you're winning a race by more than 4 seconds, I was gonna say, for some of those guys that are, riding around, sometimes you just learn data following somebody
Yep.
and being able to just see what their marks are, how their entry, their exit, all that stuff. Sometimes you can just collect data, ride around behind somebody. But when you can't see them, it's hard to collect data. So
Yeah.
when he's got a 4 second lead, you're talking about half a straight, maybe even a little bit more. Um, Hard to collect data riding behind that, but Jake Finch, another solid run.
Yep.
I think anytime you see him on the late model scene, um, he's got his name in the mix, arguably wherever he shows up. So he finishes second, Seth Christensen third, Gavin Graham fourth, and Dylan Fetcho finishes fifth. Um, so yeah, obviously Roderick, you guys hit on it, class of the field. Like you said, when you go 200 laps and caution free, I mean, at times it can be a little bit deceiving seeing only 7 cars on the lead lap, but it's tough to run a
Mm,
race like that.
It's tough, but it's good. It's good to guys be able to put the car back in the trailer knowing we're going to be able to go racing very, very soon at the end.
and that's a conversation that we've had too, is like on the local scene, you never want to see a guy wreck because that's a lot of money that's coming out of their pocket to repair that car. So like you said, just getting out of there is a win in its own right.
Even wrecking stuff, but just some of these smaller guys don't have the crews to be able to put the cars back together. So
Yep.
let alone that you may be missing other events that you have slated just because you don't have the crews when you're working on the car in the shop at 6 o'clock at night by yourself.
Yeah.
You're turning the first wrench at 6 and you're working on that thing all night. It just again for the better of the sport to just see that run like that is cool in itself.
Yep. Absolutely.
and it is to point it out. I mean, over half the cars finished less than 1 lap down. So, I mean, it wasn't, like it wasn't a race or,
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
There were guys racing hard, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, you look at the next, 8 or so drivers that were only a lap down. So obviously 8 drivers about a lap down. I mean, they're all racing for position too. So,
Yep.
yeah, those are tough races. And then, like you said, some of those guys, you don't expect to go 200 green and all of a sudden you're out there and it's like,
Here we go.
yeah, it's a race of attrition. How much are you saving? Whatever. A lot of those guys thinking, oh, there's going to be one caution at least, run it a little bit harder and we'll be able to tune on it, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're hit
There's
100 green. Where's the caution? And then
there's
all of a
12
sudden,
yeah, and you're
yeah,
using
you're at 150, no caution. And all of a sudden it's like, I used my stuff up. Well, got to deal with the hand you're
Yep.
dealt. So, um, yeah. Any other final thoughts on the Alabama 200?
no good race.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Roderick gets the win in dominating fashion. And obviously he feel like he's set the tone anytime he's got behind the wheel this year. I don't know if you want to say he's putting people on notice because it's not like he is not a favorite when he shows up, but to have the success he's had, he's definitely got himself made a name for himself and put people on notice that when he shows up, he's going to be a contender. So Um, as we always do, we love doing 180s on the podcast. So um, let's get off of some blacktop here for a minute and let's talk about some World of Outlaws, some sprint cars. So kind of a unique deal. They're putting on a Monday night show. And I alluded to it in the intro. A little bit of drama. I don't know if I want to say drama, but um, Donnie Schatz went on I think it's the Selzy Talk podcast last week, and he shared some interesting thoughts with the World Outlaws and High Limit. So um, I guess I'll kick it off to you guys. Unique deal for World Outlaws to be putting on a Monday night race, but the car count.
Yeah, they got 19 cars checked in, correct?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
19 cars for tonight.
So I'm gonna have to assume a majority of those are guys that are running for the series title. You would think.
Yep.
Now, ideally, Monday nights are not conducive for what you would consider your weekend warriors. But for racing that's been down in the southeast, especially Florida right now, you would think they would have more cars for a big show like this. But with the asterisk of Monday, I guess, when you think about it a little bit more, but still, World Outlaws. I mean, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I could unload a car there yet tonight and still make the feature.
Yep.
Like that, yeah.
And to note, it's the second time the Outlaws have been to Volusia this year already.
So it's not like they're going to somewhere new for a one night show in uncharted territory per se. Um, yeah, to hear and see that the car count was that was very, very interesting. So again, it's a Monday, but for a World of Outlaws show, that's intriguing in a couple different aspects.
From my perspective, I like having the Monday show. Again, it's just unique. We could sit here and I've actually got it on the second half of my screen here. I've got the race up, so I could sit here and watch on a Monday. But yes, like you were saying too, it probably isn't ideal for a lot of the weekend warriors, even some of the guys that may are trying to run a majority of the year. But that brings up the point of of shots on the Selzy podcast as well, which I think you want to hit on a little bit as well. And one of the big points that I took away from it, at least the clip that I saw, was he took in consideration the extra hotel nights and travel that those guys would be on the road throughout the year, which I think is definitely something that those guys got to keep an eye out on.
True, and he talked a little bit about guys driving not their own stuff or driving for somebody, which
Mm-hmm.
can change the way you drive and or what events you're going to. So he had some solid points on that as well. But again, that's uncharacteristic, I would say. But hey, I don't know. It's intriguing to me that I mean, 19 cars is just not a lot. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into the 19 too much, but
I would say a couple things. The Monday night show obviously is far from ideal for the weekend warriors. Um, and especially being in Florida on a Monday night, like I don't think there was, if teams come down there, it's not like they could hit up, a couple different sprint car races. So, Monday night deal it's tough. But I guess when we talk about 19 cars for a World Outlaws race, I guess in my mind, the first thought that comes to mind is underwhelming.
yeah, I would
So,
agree.
I mean, with 19 cars, I mean, you can run that program in an hour. What are you running? 3 heats of 6 cars?
Two. They did a 10 and a 7.
Yeah. I
So,
I mean, at that point, you're just racing for starting spots. It becomes a conversation of how hard do you want to even push in a heat race. You could end up upside down by not your own doing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
You
because
get stuff and
they
you're
took
you're
the
on your lid.
they took the top two for the dash, and then they had a qualifier one and a qualifier two to fill out the remaining two spots for the six driver dash.
And again, it's Monday, but still, I think you look at any World Outlaws feature, you're looking at running one or two B mains,
Yeah.
or LCQs or however you want to say it for those guys. That's still you're making guys race to get the feature or get into the feature. So
I've got 2 points that I kind of want to bring up. One that kind of is for the World Outlaws, and one that's kind of against the World Outlaws. One, it's still early in the year, right?
yep,
We still got another 60 some races to go, right?
yep,
Things could change.
absolutely.
But it's also the fact that high limit is now off until April, I believe.
And correct. And you have to remember that the high limit did not place race restrictions on their full-time drivers. And I think high limit, they're off until April, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty
That
confident.
that to me, that's kind of a surprise that you don't have some of those guys running just because they're off until
Yep, April's their next April 9th is their next race date. And I think I saw something too from Wikipedia. I'm gonna try and look it up here, but I'll let you keep going while I find it. About like the first time that Brad Sweet hasn't run an Outlaws race.
yeah, it's been a long time for the five-time champ.
And I want to say, I didn't even realize, but as we're talking about this drama, looks like Van Grohl is in full support of the World Outlaws. Show
No, yeah.
um, um, I didn't listen to the whole Selzy talks with Donnie, but when you talk about the World Outlaws of sprint cars, I mean, in the sprint car world, I mean, I feel like what they're down to, what they're left with since the Brad Sweet and some of those guys have left, the World Outlaws has to bang the Donnie Schatz drum.
The
That
David Gravel drum.
the David Gravel, the Donnie Schatz, like those are your two staples that
Mhm.
is going to carry the World Outlaws series name.
Go
And
Floyd.
go
What?
for it. I think
I was just gonna say they're the staples.
Yeah, yep. 100%.
They're the spokesperson, they're the staples of the sport right now. And I guess when I listen to some of the stuff that Donnie said, like he makes some good points, but it came off as, I don't want to say defensive or passive aggressive, but he definitely made some marks that like you could clearly tell that, or I felt like that it was like he's taking a shot at Brad Sweet here for what he's doing. There was a remark on how he said Brad Sweet told me he never wants to do anything to hurt sprint car racing, but here he is doing something like this, and him and Kyle Larson using Kyle Larson's name to build his series. And it's like he
so.
felt like he was taking shots, and not Donnie shots, but he was taking jabs at the high limits. And I guess he has to, I guess, to try to continue to build his series. And I don't know. He made some decent points about the travel and hotel costs and stuff like that, but also then he comes back and says some stuff about Sweet and Larson. It's just
So to the point, I agree with you a little bit on that, Cam. And to the point that I think, we talk about, and this has been mentioned a few times now, with the World of Outlaws having their other sanctioning body race limits, however you want to phrase it. For World of Outlaws, you almost want to be able to let them run a little bit more with the other guys to, hey, if Gravel goes and wins a high limit race, that's our boy, you know? And they're very limited on when they can do that. Let them go run together a little bit more. Let them
Mhm.
run together. And if you have these guys that are just dedicated to a series, they will come back to your series, right? That
Part of that too is the incentives for being a full-time guy as well.
right. And I'm not taking away from the full-time factor. I'm just saying maybe instead of 6 races, I believe it's 6, maybe it's 15,
I was gonna say 10.
10, 12. Let them go run a dozen races. Because if your World Outlaw guy goes in and wins another feature, it's no different than when we had talked about them down at Evolution the first time through. You had a
High
handful of
limit coming
high
in,
limit
and
guys going in and stealing races from their full-time guys. Like, I think if you let them go back and forth a little bit more, not only is it going to up the ante for the high limit guys to go, okay, all right, this is our territory, this is our series, we want to be the guys to win these features, but it also can go both ways in terms of the World of Outlaws can go, hey, that's our full-time guy that's vying for a championship that Mr. Almighty High Limit, we snuck in and got a feature off you guys.
Yeah, and I thought, another point that Shots kind of made off of that was he said that the purses that High Limit can, you know, advertise and push ultimately isn't what's going to drive the series. It's what you can pay, the third through 10th. That's what's going to make the series go and be
Yeah.
able, for those guys to be able to get up and down because ultimately your 3 through 10 guys aren't getting the big paydays and it's not, it's tough to keep those guys on a full-time schedule if, the third through 10th isn't getting, or
mhm,
the fourth through 10th isn't getting, something. So
that's in any racing, not just World Outlaws.
correct. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, it's like we said, it's early in the year. Um, I think the World Outlaws, it would be interesting if they cut their slack or their leash a little bit on some of their drivers because like you said, if David Gravel shows up to some of these high limit races and starts running up front, it's like, hey, competition breeds competition.
It's
And
correct. And that would be a healthy competition. And again, I mentioned just kind of banging the drum of a guy stealing a race, but at the end of the day, we all want to see these guys run well. We all want to see them run together. And I understand that there's different series and guys that have different agendas, and that's fine. That's what makes these differing series so unique. But I just think it'd be cool to see them run together a little bit more. That we don't need to feel like we're poaching drivers from one another.
Mhm.
And we had talked about this before the season's even kicked off, in terms of what drivers were running where and who they were verbally committed to. And loyalty deposits aren't due for a little bit, I don't think, at least for World of Outlaws, but still, like,
Did I did I hear right from Shots too? Or I thought I heard it from somewhere that the rule book isn't much different either, if at all.
no, and that's what he said. He had just made a comment, and it's not like we're running different motors or different drastically different tires or all this other things, that it's not like you're changing over a car consistently. It's they're 410 sprint car race, and it's gonna probably be something to do with wing angles and tire spacing and stagger and things like that, that you're not overhauling a car to go.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's not a 410 running in a 360 series, right? Like, they're not changing motors to go run these features. They're not flipping their setups upside down to go run at these different series, because at the end of the day, it's 410 wing sprint car racing.
Yep. Uh, 2 points I want to make here real quick. One, I'm looking at the results for the World Outlaws. So of the 8 races that they've run so far this year, between both the sprint cars and the late models, 3 World of Outlaw guys have won those 8 races. David Gravel, Sheldon Honshield, and Nick Hoffman. Talking in the sprint cars, it's 50-50. Two World Outlaw guys, two uh high limit guys. So point number one there. Point number two, I talked about it's been a long time since Brad Sweet has missed a World Outlaws race. It's been 10 years, 3 months, and 24 days, or 743 events since Sweet has missed a World of Outlaws race, or at least not entered into a World of Outlaws race.
Holy hell.
If you want to go even farther, Casey Kane Racing, just the dirt team itself, has gone 18 years, 4 months, and 11 days, or 1,292 events.
It's a changing of the guard right there.
Holy hell.
David Gravel has not missed a race in 20 years, 7 months, and 4 days. Or again, has not entered into a race in that long.
Wow.
So just throwing those numbers out there for you, because I saw those from Wikipedia, who is again a good source of information when it comes to open wheel sprint car, midget car racing. So
And I think one of the final thoughts too before we move on is another kind of shot that I keep saying shot and it's Donnie Shots. Well, Shots was firing shots. Um,
trademark that.
yeah. He was talking about schedules too and up and down, and which is where I kind of felt like he was started jabbing, was he's like the high limit is doing nothing for the state of Ohio and Pennsylvania for sprint car race.
Where sprint car racing is very prominent.
Correct. And he said it might not show up this year, but next year and the years to follow, that is going to be, you're going to start seeing the fallout of that. And that was another one of his points he made. But
Do you uh, quick sidebar with that? Do you feel like it's almost like an East Coast versus West Coast racing with this?
A little bit. You also got to remember where our Larson and Sweet's roots.
yeah,
They're
It's just
California boys. Yeah.
you say that, and that was the first thing that came to mind.
I mean, High Limit's venturing down into Texas for a couple of races. I mean,
Which World Outlaws do too, but
true, but it just feels like they are more Western Midwest, would you call it? With
yeah,
their
because
schedule.
well, they're actually down in Texas next week. The Outlaws are, and then
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
speeding through the
At the
schedule,
end of the
but keep
day,
going.
East Coast versus West Coast, uh, I think it's Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson versus the world. And unfortunately, those two are some of the most prominent names in open wheel racing right now, or the 410 world. So for whatever it's worth, I mean, Brad Sweet is the sprint car guy. And I don't believe he's going to put on a series that's going to half-ass anything. It's going to be run well, and people respect him and the way he races and the way he goes about his business. And then you pair him with Kyle Larson, who's on the NASCAR scene and obviously well known on the dirt side. I mean, I don't know. I think those two pairing together have got built a ton of momentum. They're staples in the wing sprint car world, and we'll have to wait and find out and see where this goes. But yeah, it's early in the year. That was a little bit of our thoughts on the wing sprint, high limit, and World Outlaws kind of debacle. And so, like I said, it's early in the year. We're gonna keep following along, paying attention, see what happens. Hopefully, World Outlaws. Hopefully, we're dead wrong. Hopefully, their car count rebounds. And like we said, it's Monday night. Maybe it's just a Monday night show. We don't know. But the 19 cars tied in with the shots on Selzy Talks. um, just thought it'd be something we could hit on. So um, we'll be following along. Again, hopefully both series are able to put on great shows and car counts are good, and we keep the 410 world thriving. So any other final thoughts before we do another 180 and get back on some asphalt?
Right.
Let's talk about some NASCAR.
All right. So let's get back into where we thrive. And we're going to do a little bit of rebound here. If you listen to our episode a couple weeks ago, we chatted on the truck series and the state of it and where it was at after Daytona and stuff like that. And then we went to Atlanta and settled down a little bit. But we're going to dive into the truck series here. And obviously Rajah Caruth gets his first win with Spire in the 71. Shortly after HendrickCars.com announces they're going to be with them throughout the whole year. Originally only going to be 10 races, but HendrickCars.com comes on board for the whole year, and Rajah follows that up with his first win. So, as I always do, just kick it off to you guys. Initial thoughts on the truck race on Friday night.
A lot better than the past 3 races.
Finally,
A lot
Finally.
better.
felt like we took a big step in the right direction. Yeah. I at the end of the day, that's where it starts, is we got to have these guys finishing races to make it a
Yeah.
race. You know, it's, yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
as for all in NASCAR, I'll be the first to get in line and be crucified for maybe being too hard on them starting the year. Because as like NASCAR guys have said, Las Vegas was going to be, now this is where the real season starts.
Yep.
Being the 2 plate races right off the get-go. Stuff's happening so fast. And now it's like, all right, let's get back to 1.5 mile race, and this is where the real season starts. So I'll be the first jump in line and say it's probably too hard on them. Graded them a little bit too harshly to start the year. But like you guys said, this is what we need, more of this. Just good, hard racing, keeping it clean. And
it was very competitive too.
correct.
Absolutely.
It's not like one, like the Alabama 200 where one guy dominated. You had your guys throughout the race that were up there up front and leading laps, and you had the lead lap battles and the cautions to kind of break things up. And that was just a very good race, and it was a well needed race for the truck series.
And even to that point, you got Mr. Truck Series himself. He even struggled a little bit in Kyle Busch.
Oh yeah.
He had his hands full there for a while, and they could never seem to really get the balance of the truck dialed in. And I listened to a lot of his scanner audio, and it just felt like he had the opposite problem he had all of last year. They
Just
balanced
flat
the
out
rear,
missed it.
balanced the rear. Well, then he had nothing in the front. Then he's burning the rights off of it. Then he has no right front now. Now he's got the rears burned off, and they just felt like they were chasing that thing all over the place.
Yeah. Where then you have his teammate and Rajah, who just talk about having a dialed in truck.
Yeah.
That truck came there to race. Which also brings up a point, and this is kind of ties in with the Cup Series guys too. That Spire Motorsports camp is coming on strong already this year.
Yeah.
They're here to show us that they're no longer a mid pack. I forget what Boyer's term was, but they're going to be there to compete this year in both the trucks and the Cup Series.
So that's 2 wins in a row for Spire. Kyle Busch
Yep.
got them last week. And that's 7. And then obviously Rajah. So, and I was just looking here, 10 different drivers led laps on Friday night.
Yep.
And 4 of those 10 led double digits. So, like you said, a handful of guys that were able to run up front, lead laps, and again, just good hard racing. So, I thought one of the storylines here throughout the truck series through the start of this year is, it pains me to pat him on the back at MHR, is Tyler Ankrum.
MHR's got speed. End of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bottom line, they're going to start up front no matter what. They've proven that super speedway or 1.5 miles, they've got that organization in line.
And MHR is McAnally, so that's Eckes, Ankrum. They got the 91, which is kind of their
all-star truck
where they have different guys in it. And then they got the 43 with Daniel Dye. So those 3 guys, and then you throw somebody like I mean, now that they're a Chevy camp, and again, we've touched on it, the Chevy drivers, the pipeline of Chevy drivers, definitely there's no lack of talent in the Chevy pipeline.
Yep.
So you could bring in a guy like Zane Smith to run that 91 truck. So it is sucks because, well, yeah, it does suck because our boy Derek Kraus, shout out, put in 3 good years with them, and I feel like, he laid the foundation. Unfortunately, was replaced, and I feel like he, in a way, built that organization kind of from the ground up, and at least giving them a notebook on how to have speed, and then obviously they've got the right fit of drivers that they've been bringing in to just continue to build speed. So I think we could just not even anchor them. I think we can just say MHR in general is not going anywhere.
Yep.
And to go off of that, I'm gonna go the flip side of that. Somebody who's struggled, and I get it, the sample size is very small this early, but I, I just expected more out of Ty Dillon. I did.
Yep.
I mean, to this point, what Matt DiBenedetto did last year is ahead of what he's doing this year.
Again,
Now,
small sample size, but
very, very small sample size, but with a veteran driver who has spent a lot of time in the top 3 series, I just felt like there would be a little more there sooner.
So when your team puts out a tweet after the race that says brought it home in one piece, like that's a Daytona.
yeah,
That's not a mile-and-a-half tweet. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. You already did, and it might, maybe we should cut him some slack because he's spent a lot of time in the Xfinity and Cup Series. We've alluded to how different the different series of cars drives.
Yep.
So although he is experienced and he's might be back to ground zero again, like back to learning how this truck drives and the aero and all the stuff that he's feeling and getting used to a new team and stuff like that. So small sample size, but
Watch, hey, when we did this with the Cup Series, just watch. He's going to run well the next couple of weeks here.
yeah.
We bang and drum, and then all of a sudden they answer the bell. They answer the call. I'm
Yeah.
expecting that coming, so just be ready for that.
No, but I would say again, that's somebody who throughout the first three races has definitely underwhelmed or underperformed in the expectations, and having the name that he does and the experience. Hopefully he can turn it around.
another guy that's started off rough. And again, you got to think rookie here had some bad luck come his way. Lane Riggs
Oh
in
my,
that 38.
Yeah.
Holy guys! So I'm watching the World of Outlaws here. A 3/4 modified just blew his motor coming across the line. Like full on, like, oh yeah, there's oil on the tires and everything. Like just blew it in the heat race.
Yeah, put her in the trailer.
Sorry, I had to point that out. I saw that. It was just wow. But yes, Lane Riggs, just tough start.
Again, very small sample size, and he's in equipment in a team that knows how to win. And it just, again, same scenario. I think it may take him a little time to get acclimated. And, we don't ever wish bad on anyone by any means, but sample size is very small from both of these organizations who have, in War Rackley has proven with debated Matty D
Matty.
that they can put a truck together that'll run in the top 10 without a doubt. And it just, new teams, new drivers, new spotters, new terminology. It may take a little time to get the kinks out, but just with these guys having more experience, I just felt like they would gravitate to that experience to just lean on them to get settled.
Yep.
2 points to the Lane Riggs thing. One, I would say expectations, or the two expectations are driven from one, he's had his fair share in NASCAR series. I mean, last year he was running Xfinity races for Colleague, and he was running well. I think he ran a race at Martinsville. He ran one at Texas, and he ran well.
He finished in the top 10 at Martinsville.
So obviously he's shown he can do it. And he's had his share of NASCAR rides, and even in the late model side.
KHI.
Yeah, last year he's had good runs with KHI. So that's one. And then two, I mean, it's racing, but he's got pretty big shoes to fill. You're coming off of
Yes.
Zane Smith in that 38, who was a contender anytime he was strapped into that 38. Had it
Yep.
in the championship, won a championship. Don't want to say he was dealt an unfair hand because he's got a full-time job driving trucks. So in that sense, I feel like I was kind of dealt a shorthand because I'm not doing that. It is kind of a tough spot for him. I mean,
Expectations, I think, need to be tempered a little bit.
yep. And again, we'll put him on blast and then tune in about a month from now. We'll be the first to put you on blast, but then we'll be the first to pat you on the back. So
We've also seen that anybody that listens to our podcast also turns around very quickly. So if anything, this is just a good luck charm for them.
and if anybody's looking to turn things around, just
You
let
let
us
You let us know.
you let us know. We'll talk our stuff on you, and we'll give you some tough
You'll
love.
feel that good mojo coming really quick.
Yeah. The aura in the room just changes.
Yep. Yep.
But no, I thought that race on Friday night was just a good rebound for the truck series, and again, shows what it can be.
Yep.
The right
Absolutely.
circumstances, good guys, a lot of different guys leading laps, young guys racing hard, racing clean.
You got a good group of drivers. It's just got to get them to, you just got to learn.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and I just pulled up the points. Kind of an interesting point standings. Tyler Ankrum, Ty Majeski, Corey Heim, Raja, Nick Sanchez, Taylor Gray, Matt Crafton, Brett Holmes, Eckes, Enfinger. That's your top 10 in points right now. So
Yep.
You got a couple guys on the outside looking in. Enfinger, Daniel Dye, we just touched on, Stuart Friesen, Tanner Gray, Garcia, Ben Rhodes, who we patted on the back a couple weeks ago about, hey, is he going to be a trucker for life? He takes care of his stuff, and here he's sitting in 17th in the points. So come on,
Sorry
Ben.
to anybody that we talk any good to, because it works the same way.
Yeah. Yep.
So no, I mean, again, that top 10 right there, we just talked about a good young core group of drivers there.
And then you got the experience of Crafton and Enfinger in there.
Yeah, and
That
Rhodes
are
there. Yep.
Yep.
kind of on the outside looking in right now. And again, we're only 3 races into this, but when you're 3 races in and your regular season's only 16, we're almost 25% of the way done with your regular season. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
got to get it going.
Yep.
Any other final thoughts on the old truck series?
No, just again, good race. Just need to back it up now.
Yep. Weekly. Gotta do that weekly.
And I do want to say I'm coming around on the truck series again. I'll be the first to say last year was a little bit of a tough year. First year without Kraus in it. It was like, all right, yeah, could really care less. Not I don't have any skin in the game, but boy,
I'm gonna come back at you because today is National Grammar Day, so it's technically you couldn't care less.
God.
But I'm just gonna say I'm coming back around. I'm starting to tune in more. Maybe that year hiatus was what I needed.
When the trucks are good, it's really good, but when it's bad, it's really bad.
Well, it is. Yeah.
I'm thinking about that video I sent you guys on Friday night on Twitter, and it's Friday. You know what that means? And it was a minute long video of just trucks just
Um,
and I could not help but just laugh because it's first 2 weeks there
yep.
was kind of that video to a T. So,
Yeah.
any other final thoughts on the truck series?
No, I think we
No.
covered it all.
All right, let's get into the final topic for tonight. The NASCAR Cup Series. As we kind of alluded to it earlier, the real season has begun. Um, so I'll kind of kick it to you guys. Initial thoughts. Kyle Larson has a pretty dominant win. Leads 181 laps and kind of the class of the field. So, initial thoughts.
Didn't, I mean, Larson obviously dominated that race, but I just don't know if I saw enough out of the Fords quite yet to be convinced with the new nose. Well, the new car, really.
Yeah.
You had a couple of guys that got up front. You had Chase Briscoe up there. Blaney ran up there most of the day. Logano was really up and down, especially after starting the pole and just dropping like a rock that he did. And then Gregson ultimately coming up from the back and finishing up front as well. It's you see the light at the end of the tunnel, or that, no, not glimmer of hope, but it's just you can see the perspective that car's got, but it's just not quite there yet. Maybe it's just building that notebook. So I could be bashing on it too early, but it's just this is that set tone setter race, and that was the tone that I got.
Yeah. I would agree. I think a little, not quite as much for Toyota, but a little bit could be said to Toyota as well. Still gathering a notebook, first
Yep.
time a mile and a half with this new nose, and um, they, they'll get it figured out. There's
Oh yeah.
certainly in both camps, there's not a lack of talent behind the wheel. That is
There's too
for
many smart people at the shops to not figure it out.
correct. It's gonna. Some people don't like this, and that can be, you can take this in a lot of different ways, and in life too as well. It just sometimes only thing that's going to fix it is just a little time.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but I mean, ultimately, really good race, and you had all you guys running the top, especially Larson and Reddick there at the end. But you got guys running through the middle, you got guys wrapping the bottom. I mean, you had runs coming on the outside. You had kind of guys not really diving the corners, but they were driving it off in hard on the
Yep.
bottom, gain positions and slide up through on exit to nose out spots. So,
Beefy.
yeah, I was pretty happy with the product itself in terms of the race.
You had guys playing the arrow game too.
Oh, hard, so
Hard.
hard.
But it was a lot of back and forth with each other too. So it was you could play the arrow game, you could give, but you got
Rolls audio cutting in and out.
Yeah, I think we're losing them a little bit.
oh, hope not.
Can you hear us, Fangirl?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Check, check.
Hello? Well, let me just do this.
I think we lost. I think we lost. I think we lost them. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Well, what?
Can you hear me?
We're getting there. You're kind of cutting out. You're a little choppy, but we're getting there.
Oh God. Well, I'm gonna stick with this for now then.
Okay, there we go. That's a little
I
better.
think his lips are moving, but he's pretty choppy.
All right, I'm gonna stick with this then. We'll see what happens.
Try your headset. You're
I
still
just took it off. You guys keep talking.
All right. Well, we got a little difficulties here, so I guess but kind of going back, and hopefully
Mic
he can
check.
hear us
Can you
through this
hear us
quick.
or no? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. We got him.
All right.
Got
I don't know what it is. Battery's fine and everything like that.
We had you the whole time.
You guys suck.
Took a page out of Pat McAfee's book right there. He had JJ Watt on, and he goes, "We're losing yet." He goes, "What?" And you can hear him the whole time.
You guys suck.
Okay. Back to racing here. Um, when you go back to the aero game, I mean, ultimately that's what won Larson that race.
Oh, absolutely.
He had Reddick guessing because Reddick was gaining a lot of time on the top. He had him guessing, and then he just when Reddick thought Larson was going to run the top, he ran the bottom, and it just took the arrow away. And he could, I think, at his closest point there, he got within like 3 or 4 car lengths, and that was the best he could do. And that bubble, you just could never get inside that bubble to get in up under his bumper or get to his bumper to make that move.
And I think you saw that pretty clearly there towards the end. I think there was with 2 to go. He had 1 shot to get to his bumper. And he thought Larson was going to run the top to block him. And Larson ran the bottom. And
Yeah.
he got right to his kind of bumper and hit that wall. And then Larson just drove away from him. So
Yeah.
So Reddick, like when he was trying to catch him, like Larson was running, I don't know, 3/4 of the way. I ain't playing that game. He was about 3/4 off of the white line, and 1 and 2 for sure. And I thought Reddick could have maybe tried to roll that bottom to get that air onto his left front to get that car to turn. Given, I don't know if that aero game would have came into play again, but I thought that during the race, and then really he had 2 shots to get around Larson. He missed the line on both of them.
Yeah.
He picked the wrong line, and Larson was right there to just stop him.
But again, that comes to the veteran prowess of those 2 guys, though.
Oh yeah,
And you had to know, and I said earlier in the year, Reddick will win races if you can keep it out of the fence. Rightfully so, he did. He could never get in the bubble to make a move or get there to get a run. He absolutely he had him in the tracks there. I thought with like 6 to go, he was reeling him in. I'm like, he's gonna get there. And then Larson just changed the line, and he had Reddick guessing a little bit. And he was just taking his air away so hard. With about 2 to go there, that was, like you said, Cam, that was his shot there with about 2 to go. But
well, yeah. Obviously those 2 are, could argue, 2 of the most fearless drivers out there, not afraid to run the wall, do things that you think they shouldn't do with their car. So it's always fun to see those 2 go at it. Those 2 are, you get to a Homestead, Kansas, a Las Vegas, any of those tracks, those 2 guys are, they'll probably be 1 and 2 to go up to the wall and run that thing.
And honestly, that camera in the right
on
behind
the spoiler
was so sweet to watch. You're like,
Yep.
You could feel like you could almost reach out and grab the wall watching
Yep.
it. That camera angle is so awesome to watch.
So racing or auto racing analytics on Twitter, another good one if you're techie. If the last 50 laps at Vegas were based on the 4th quarter median speed alone, Tyler Reddick would have won that race, and Larson would have finished second, where he would have basically clocked in at the beginning of pit road. So call it, I don't know, second and a half is what Reddick would have won by. So you could, again, he had the speed and he was catching him. You could tell in the broadcast too that he was catching him. It's just he hit that air wall. And
Yeah. So going a little away from the finish a little bit here. Couple struggles from some drivers, I guess I did not expect. Chris Buescher, he bowed out early.
That was the couldn't fasten them all.
Yep.
Jesus.
Chris Buescher with the Fastenal sponsor didn't quite
Yep.
have the lug nut fastened. So he blows right
And
from
then you have the other way around of Bubba that can't unfasten the lug nut.
Yeah. They got out the chop saw to cut it off, which is a miracle in itself.
Yeah.
with the old chop saw to cut the nut off.
Yep.
But yeah, Buescher didn't obviously have it fastened there or whatever, didn't quite lock in. Then interesting when you saw that wheel come apart and he hit the wall so hard we had to go under red.
Yeah.
We had to get the old welding machine out and put a
Steel. Was it a steel plate they put in the wall up there, I think?
I think it had to been, yeah.
looking at that steel wall going, wow, that looks like a grade A operation. But anyways, get her up and let's go green again. So he balls out in stage one. You alluded to it there. The old Bubba nut stuck. He was he was on pit road and was it his right rear?
Left front.
Left front, yeah.
Left front.
Um had that nut on so tight they couldn't get it off.
That baby wasn't. They saw Bush and they
No.
said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that."
So yeah. So he goes, I think 3 laps down. Obviously puts him really out of contention the rest of the day there.
Yeah.
And that was somebody who had, I believe he was in the top 3, the first or top 5.
Oh, he was top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about top 5. Top 10 for sure.
I was gonna say this season, I think he's the only driver to finish in the top 10 all 3 races up until or
Well, 2.
top 2.
Yep.
Anyway, but yeah, he was on a good run. Obviously he showed speed, so obviously that was tough for him. Thank God Freddie Kraft can get a haircut now. And I mean, if you saw that picture on Twitter, Freddie, come on, buddy, we need a cut. And then another interesting pick that I had finished 5th and 2nd there last year, just was on the struggle bus all day was Christopher Bell. Blowing a tire, spinning, just struggled all day. So he was definitely somebody that I think a lot of people was going to be a contender and just had a tough go of it.
Another guy, and I'm gonna go kind of far, a little down the list here on at least on our notes here. Coming to bite him again, Kyle Busch and the Pit Road Gremlins.
Yeah. Yeah, they serviced that car outside the box. Now,
That's a joint effort on that one.
They serviced it outside the box, but it was like inches. It was not like the car was hanging out the box. It was like the splitter was over the line is what it came down to.
Yeah. Which again, it's a joint effort. Sure, the crew would have seen that, absolutely, and taken the precaution. Sure, you lose a couple spots, but you're still got a contention. But Bush has got his marks to hit as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that, that's what really makes these races unique and fun is you can have a bad fast car, which he did, and it comes down to one pit road mishap.
Yep.
The driver or the crew, either way.
You may not gain a lot on pit road, but you sure as hell could lose a lot
Bingo.
in some instances.
You can lose laps on pit road.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was a pit road gremlin there, and he was bad fast as well. Obviously being his home track, figured he's gonna want to show up and have a good run, and he was doing just that. But mistake, I think everybody's at fault there. Him sliding the box, and then the pit crew to just get out there and service it, and not look. But again, it was so close that it's like even if the pit crew would have looked, they would have been like, "Shit, it's close, but we don't think so. Service it anyways. Get them out there."
Yep.
But Bouncing around a little bit on some of the talk points. Another good run for that 77 in the Spire camp. Carson Hocevar.
Yeah.
Really, both of the cars up until LaJoy spun.
Yep. But I think Carson Hocevar, he's definitely got himself, I would say, arguably the front runner to be Rookie of the Year.
Oh, absolutely. And I think he was the biggest guy that had kind of question marks around going from truck to cup, given he ran a number of cup races last year. But that big a jump, but I just wondered if the momentum was going to carry over from last year in his cup racing that he did. And again, with this being that first race of the year, again, super small sample size, but holding up his end of the bargain right now.
Yeah.
And I would say on the flip side of that, somebody who he's competing with, who now again, small sample size, but getting into the meat and potatoes of the schedule here in the mile and a half was Josh Berry.
Yep.
Yeah. Surprise. He was one that I called that was going to be the flagship for SHR.
And while we get into that, let's dive right in. Is that a driver? Is that a setup? Is SHR on the mend? Obviously, Noah Gregson shows speed. He finished his sixth.
Briscoe showed lapses of speed as well.
Priest did Priest things.
Priest didn't really. He wrecked in practice and never really came back from it. Priest finished 23rd, Briscoe finished 21st, Barry finished 20th. So you had basically three of them, 3 out of the 4, right, with each other.
Yeah.
And then you had the outlier Gregson, who that's his home track. Vegas is his home track as well. So you knew he was going to put on a show and do the best he could. But
hard charger goes to him, 30-6.
What are thoughts on SHR right now? Obviously, should probably revisit this in a month again, but we're into the meat and potatoes of the schedule. If you listened to Door Bumper Clear last week, they got a lot of hate for Spotter Brett said, who's on the hot seat coming into the year? And he said, SHR, every one of them. So I guess, what are your thoughts on SHR here?
Time. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, you gotta let it kind of goes that same conversation with the dark horse. You gotta let that play out first before you really start evaluating teams, I think.
Because for all we know, these 4 guys could win races and all 4 of them could be locked into the playoffs.
Yep.
It's not all that far fetched if you think about it. Like the other 3 have 2 of the 4 have significant cup experience. And you have Gregson, who does have some cup experience, and you also have Barry, who filled in for Bowman fairly heavily when he was out last year. That they're not that far fetched from a one strategy call to those 4 cars being locked into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw in, I'll chime in here quick. Some rumors swirling with front row getting moved up to, I think, what was it, tier 1?
They are tier 1.
They are tier 1.
They are tier 1.
And then I believe the Stewart Haas and Ford partnership is up at the end of the year.
Correct.
So then you throw in the rumor mills of what's going on with that camp. I don't know. It's interesting. We were at Atlanta last week, and Briscoe showed speed too. He was running up front, the top 5 before he pulled a Briscoe stunt and wrecked out. But I would say early in the year, I think we're ahead of where we should be. Results not showing.
They're showing bigger glimpses of the speed they have.
Correct.
Yep. 100%.
They're showing bigger, I mean, even in the qualifying efforts.
Yep.
Briscoe was up there. They're showing that they have the cars to do it. It's whether you get off cycle or it's a penalty or you miss something, they're showing the glimpses that the potential is certainly there. And that's why, for me, that's what I just said. I go, don't be surprised if they're one strategy call from locking cars into the playoff.
Yep. And again, it's maybe a little bit of the carryover from last year, just the entire Ford camp struggling.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think you hit the nail on the head. For what the sample size we have, they're showing flashes. And with time, they're gonna start putting everything together. Right
Yep.
now, we'll see the qualifying run. We'll see a solid qualifying run. We'll see a flash of it in the race. We'll see a mishap, a mistake, something. I do think as we start getting into, race 7, 8, 9, 10, I do think SHR is going to start stringing everything together. A qualifying run and then a solid day on the track. And I do think, there's no reason you can't see those 4 cars in the top 15.
I was gonna say give it to May. Once May comes around, that's when I think you reevaluate.
Yep.
Okay.
Just with the mixture of tracks that you have in there, because you have a few short tracks in there, you have a road course in there, you got another mile and a half, you got Dover and Talladega, so you still have a good mix of tracks coming up. That I think that's going to be your true. Here's what we've got.
Yep.
So yeah, obviously SHR, kind of all alluding to it. Hopefully on the mend, headed in the right direction. I think once we can start stringing a full day together, there's no reason they can't be putting 4 cars in the top 15. They're showing the speed and they have the talent. So it's good for them. I think the sport's better when SHR is running well and got their guys in the mix. And then one of the last talking points that we just got to shout out and cover, Derek Kraus making the debut in the 16. Kel, I suppose me and you can just talk about this because we got a hater here
I
with us.
do. No, I'm not a hater. I'm not a hater. I'll let you guys talk, but I do have one point I want to bring up when you guys are done.
At the end of the day, and I think it was Chris Rice that tweeted it. He did the job for the day. He showed glimpses of speed, and we were listening. I would listen to his audio the whole time. He at points was, whether it's strategy or not, was running laps as fast as the leaders. He had moments that he showed a lot of speed. Obviously, it's going to be just getting comfortable in this cup car, which he has only 6 cracks at it, going to be 5 now. So getting comfortable in that car, but at the end of the day, in the first 3 races, he brought the 16 home in one piece. He ran laps, he learned, he got comfortable. As high as 18th, just struggled to fire off, and he just dropped, and he couldn't really seem to maintain those restarts. He had, like I said, got to 18th at one point. But he kept himself out of trouble. He ran all the laps. There were no pit road penalties. He checked all of his boxes there. Stayed on the lead lap a majority of the day. He finished, what did he finish? 28th, I think.
29th.
29th.
This car says 28th.
Well, 28th,
Either way.
29th. It's beside the point that he
No, not
he
either way.
did,
Let me get this right.
he did what he needed to do. He did what he needed to do for the day to learn and get comfortable in that car. And he's going to go to Phoenix, where it's going to be a wild card on the restarts. If you can get through the restarts on the 19 wide, you'll be all right, I think.
Well, and that kind of that's not my point I was going to make, but you had that mayhem of the restarts as well at Vegas, so that's probably where the inexperience comes in, as the different type of mayhem that those restarts have.
And I was going to echo all Kellen's points. I think for his debut, I think my overall grade, I would give him a B. Again, kept the car clean, ran all the laps. Shit, not a lot of people, I don't care if it's strategy or not, can say they led laps in their first start. So kudos to him. He led 2 laps first start, kept the car clean. Obviously, he didn't. I was hoping for a top 20. I think he had the speed, but a lot of the inexperience. The restarts, we got up to 18th, got up to mid 20s, early 20s. And those restarts from the radio, he was better on the top, but he didn't want to be on the top of 3 wide. So then he would choose the bottom. His nose would feel like it was taken off on him. So it was like he felt like the bottom was the safest place, but not the best place for his car. So I think just a steep learning curve for him. But again, at the end of the day, he led the lap. He led 2 laps. He ran 400 miles, kept the car clean. And again, no pit road mistakes. A lot to learn. But I will say, I do think Phoenix is going to be a challenge, but I am excited because if you watched his in-car camera, a track that's less aero dependent is going to be interesting to see because Brad K was making his life a miserable SOB. He would drive up to his bumper and then he would get there or he'd run a lane higher, then Brad would run a lane higher. He couldn't get around Brad. And then under caution at one time he said to Mac, he's like, TJ really knows how to drive Brad's car. And Travis Mack just said to him, he's like, Brad's a savvy vet. He's going to make your life hard. Give him everything you got to get around him. So it was interesting to watch.
Yeah.
For him to be up there. And I mean, it was for 25th and Brad was making his life a living hell. But I don't know.
But those are
thought-
learning moments too.
100%.
Follow Brad around, and he was in practice. He was 23rd in 10-lap run speed. So 10-lap run, he had speed. And what did he do? Spotter was talking the whole time. You're really good. Who did he follow around? Logano and Larson. Perfect. Get out there at no cost to run around behind those guys. Let them go by and learn.
Yep.
So they even said, again, like I said, even on strategy with tires, he was at one point was the quickest car on the track. That's pretty cool to have that, even if it is on strategy.
Yeah.
And I do think one last point, sorry to cut you off, tire changer.
Go ahead.
I do think the results doesn't speak to the speed he had. I do think he had a faster car than 28th. But I do think on the back of his mind, first start, don't do anything to wreck the car, to do anything. I do think, with a few other starts, he tries something to get around Brad. He's a little bit more bold on some of the moves that he makes to, run in the low 20s. I do think the speed he had in that car this past weekend, he had speed to run in the low 20s, but I do think the inexperience in him in the back of his mind, hey, this is my first start. I'm not going to make some of these moves that puts me in a chance that I'm going to wreck this car, not run all the laps. So I thought that was, one of my knocks was I do think he had speed to run in the low 20s, but again, it's a big learning curve to try to pass Brad K when Brad K drives out his rear view mirror. But that'll come with time. I mean, you're racing the best of the best.
One point I want to make, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's keeping his name in somebody's conversation.
Yep.
Staying in the garage area, he's running races, he's in the conversation. It's what you gotta that's all you can ask for.
The real test, the true test of what's going to go on is when they unload that 16 at Darlington.
Yes.
That is going to be a mother of a race to run. It'll be a test.
Yep.
But no, it's good. It's just fun to watch. I told Cam at one point he was racing for like 25th. I go, I've never rooted so hard for 25th in my life.
Yeah. And I think, the inexperience, the only way to get better is to put yourself in that position and keep your name in the mix. So he knows he's got to work on his restarts. I'm sure he learned a lot about aero and passing, and that's what he said in his post races. He didn't realize how hard it is to pass in this car and the impact that air has on it. So yeah, it'll come with time. It'll be interesting to see. Phoenix is a good track for him, a little bit less aero dependent for him, and
Built a notebook.
who's not to say that they just keep him in the wing and Dinger races full time for another 2 years, and then he hangs it up, and here's our
Yeah.
next Xfinity driver. Keep
Yep.
him in the wing for 2 years, do sim work, just work on the team, run a couple races here and there, do a good job. Again, just keep your name in the mix. So anyways, sorry, that was had to get that shout out in there. Definitely interesting. We're gonna be locked in again this weekend, cheering them on and hoping for a good run. So any other final thoughts on Vegas?
No.
Good weekend. Time to back it up with Phoenix.
Yep.
Phoenix is going to be good race. So yeah, that'll do it for kind of the main bulk of the episode. But as we do here, we'll just give you a brief shout out on what race previews you can expect to see come this week. So Kel, I'll let you start first.
Yeah, so first one we got the World Outlaw Sprint Cars at I believe is how you say it would be Kennedale.
what I go with.
Kennedale Speedway Park. Yeah. So you're looking at March 8th and 9th for that one. So that would be Friday, Saturday for those features. So certainly expect a definite hike in car count for that one. So be on the lookout for race preview for those guys.
I suppose that means I'm next. So
Yep.
I'll start with the late model stocks. I had a race preview of that last week. The pro late models raced at Southern National Motorsports Park. The late model stocks are racing at Southern National Motorsports Park this coming Saturday. Just pretty much awaiting a official entry list on that. But your regulars are going to be there, so take a look at the race preview that I made for that. Otherwise, I'm also looking at IndyCar starts this weekend at St. Petersburg. I'll be making a race preview on that. I'm definitely excited for that and hoping I could catch a lot more of those races coming up this year.
Perfect. And then look, the racing's been so good, we got to stick with it. Stay tuned. We're going to be covering again some NASCAR. Got NASCAR, the Xfinity Series, and the ARCA all at Phoenix, wrapping up a West Coast swing. So trucks are off this weekend, but Xfinity, ARCA, and the Cup Series all at Phoenix. Going to be a great race. So stay tuned for those. Let us know your thoughts as we kind of drop those quick hitters, if you like them or not, or if you have any other ideas. Be sure to shoot us your feedback. So, and then as we always do, the final step of the week. We got a quick fantasy recap and we got some race picks. So again, the NASCAR fantasy, it's been all over the place. I went
But
from
one
to last to my
thing
girlfriend.
remains the same. Ya boys still on top.
Yeah. Whatever.
We've had a wild couple weeks here, first to last, to Carolyn getting a win, to Abby getting a win, all over the place. So Carolyn had a little bit of a reality check after the win, and then she went 0 for 4 on the pick'ems, and I said, "Yep, this is how this goes. I got to
Yep.
win the first week, and then I got dead last second week." So it's just how it goes. But obviously, we're having a ton of fun with that. And it's early in the year. We're all grouped up. Nobody's really separated themselves, or nobody's out of it. So it's fun to keep you interested, keep you cheering for drivers you don't always cheer for.
Yep.
Sometimes hoping a driver you like wrecks. Who knows? But still time to join. You can pick it right. You can get right in the mix in no time. So
Yep.
the sand in the hourglass is running out. But join. We'd love to keep having new people join and get your name in the mix. So final race pick here, Phoenix. For the Cup Series, obviously last week, our tire changer sadly picked Kyle Larson. I picked Christopher Bell, and Kellen picked Alex Bowman. So
Ouch.
We had the winner, we had the Mick pack, and we had damn near last.
So yeah,
Yep.
good balance across the Stones pick crew picks. So
Pure balance.
we're going to Phoenix this week. So I obviously picked Christopher Bell. I got last. And so I get first dibs this week, and it's a no doubter. I'm going in the Toyota camp. I'm going Martin Truex Jr.
Not
All
the
right.
car I was expecting, but all right.
Yeah, that ain't a bad pick. I'm gonna spin around. Um,
Yeah, your driver's going to spin around. You're right.
yeah, of course. I'm gonna go not on a limb here, but I'm gonna take Logano, Joey Logano.
Boy, you're opening the door for me again here. So there's two. I'm stuck between two guys now because I thought one of them would be off the board for sure.
Yeah, one of them was probably Byron.
He is still on the board.
Yeah.
One's Wilson.
But you know what? I gotta go with the
Late.
homeboy. He finished twice. He finished twice there at both races last year.
Oh boy.
So I'm going Blaney.
Should have known that. I'm surprised it took you this long to pick him.
Byron was very, very tempting.
Yeah. For sure. There you got it. Drop
Tune
your
in
picks.
next week. What was that?
I said drop your picks in the comments for sure.
So we
Yeah.
have no Chevys either winning this sucker,
Yep.
even though they won both races last year.
Yep.
All right.
Sometimes you got to go off strategy to get the win.
Yep.
Yep.
Anyways, drop your race picks below. Tell us we're idiots. Do whatever you want to do. Make fun of us. Anything you want to drop in the comments, do it. But again, another fun episode. Covered everything. Pro late models. Got into a little bit of dirt in the wing sprint drama. We're back on track. Truck series is on the mend. It's not a wreck fest anymore. So that was fun to dive into that. And then got into the big boys and Kyle Larson's domination and Reddick throwing everything he's got at him. And then a Cup Series debut for our boy Derek Kraus. So another fun episode. Again, drop your comments below. Any ideas you got, anything you want us to cover, let us know. We'll cover it. Again, not saying we're going to do a good job, but we'll give it our best shot. So give us some feedback. Let us know your race winning pick. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week.
Oh.